Welcome to Team G503. I'm your host, Cool Scott Schiller. I'm not that cool, but this video is. That's why I'm wearing the shades, because this is a really cool video. I had a little problem with the frame on the 1943 Willys MB. It wasn't that big of a deal, but the previous owner had moved the transmission backwards because they stalled a T90 transmission, and that's not a problem. It's a fantastic thing, actually, and they did a really nice job. Unfortunately, I'm going back with a T84 to kind of make it more factory stock, so I had to change out the brackets that were cut to allow that transmission to be moved back, and I had to replace it with new brackets. And they weren't actually new brackets, they were removed from a 43 Willys MB frame. To attach them, this is the cool part, to attach them, I use what I will call these little rivet bullet fasteners that Scott Tannis, out at Jimmy Strauss Jeeps gave me when I visited out there. And I gotta tell you, they work fantastic, and you can hardly tell that they're not the original factory rivets. So check it out. Let's take a look at the original cross-member mounting bracket on the frame. You can see the top is in decent shape, but the bottom's really pitted and has been cut off. We'll move to the inside of the frame here, where I can show you the original rivets and what they look like. And we can look at the frame here and see where it's been drilled, so the cross-member could be moved backwards. Part of this repair will require me to weld those holes up. To make it easier to access the rivets on the outside of the frame, I'm going to cut off the top flange with a cutoff wheel. When using a cutoff wheel, remember to wear your safety gear, gloves, and a face mask. Where I've cut off the top tang, it's really sharp, but now I have easy access to the rivets. I changed to a grinding disc, and I'll grind the top of the rivet off until it's flush smooth with the outside of the bracket. I'm using the grinding wheel and only removing a little bit of material at a time. I'm not forcing it at all. I'm looking to remove just the head of the rivet. As I grind down here, you can see that I've ground off the head, and you can see the outline of what remains of the rivet. After I've done all three, I'm going to take a little small punch to mark the centers for my drill bit. Simply put the punch on and give it one tap with a hammer. I'm only eyeballing the centers of the rivets, but this will help me as I start with my drill bit so it doesn't jump around on the metal. Instead of trying to take one drill bit and just make one pass to drill the rivet out, I'll start with an 1/8 inch drill bit and work my way up until there's only a little bit of the material remaining of the original rivet. I started out using an 1/8 inch bit, then moved to 15/64 and finally 5/16. Once I ran the 5/16 through, there was just a small amount of the original rivet left, perhaps a 1/16 to a 32nd of an inch. I can now give the bracket a couple of taps with a hammer and it'll come right away from the frame. Behind the frame here is going to need a little prep work, but next I need to remove what's remaining of the rivets. I discovered it would be necessary to remove what remains of the rivets when I tried on the opposite side to just simply take a punch at this point and knock them out. All I did was bend the little flanges of metal back in, and the rivets would not come out from the other side. Once I have the rivets ground down flush with the frame, I'll simply take a brass drift and knock out the rivet to the opposite side. As you see here, I didn't do any damage to the original drilled hole for the original rivet. I'll go ahead and knock out the remaining rivets. Here you can see from where I've collected them from the other side, the actual heads where I've drilled through. It took a little while to wire wheel and grind down the frame as well as the bracket. I used RCMP, the Rust Sergeant from Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts, as well as applying 2 light coats of Barrier 3 red oxide primer. In lining up the bracket, the lower hole is probably a 1/16 of an inch off, which will impede my installation. So I'm just using a drill bit here just to take a little material out of the bottom hole. Now here's the fun part. I'll take the rivet and line up the splines on the bracket. I'll use a flat washer that's a little larger than the inside of the splines and a regular nut. Try to install the washer so it's centered. This is going to be important when you go ahead and take the ratchet and tighten it down to pull the splines through the material. Setting the splines is a very important part of the application here. The splines hold the rivet as you're going to put the nut on the back side and turn it to snap it off. I'll take a ratchet and tighten down the nut so the splines get pulled through and set. Here I'll take the washer off, and you can see the splines are through the material and will hold the rivet in place. I'll repeat the process on the other 2 holes in the bracket. With all 3 rivets set in my bracket, it lines up nicely now in the frame. I'll just test fit it one time. You could at this point use a clamp to hold the part into place while you tighten the rivets. I'm just going to go ahead and put one of the nuts on the back side of one of the rivets. We're looking at the inside of the frame here as I put the rivets through the frame holes. I'll install the nut that has the rivet piece on the back on all 3. In this next clip here, you'll see how Scott Miller takes a wrench and turns the top of the rivet until the top snaps off and leaves the rivet remaining rounded part. Now I'll take my MIG welder and weld the inside of the rivet where it meets the actual bolt. You see here I've welded the insides and that's all secure. I'm using flux wire, so I've got a little spatter. Now I'll take a Dremel tool and simply use that to shape what I've welded back to the original rivet shape that was in the beginning. After I've cleaned up my rivets and spatter, I'll apply a coat of red oxide primer and now ready for paint. You can see here how nice and tight this is, and I'm more than satisfied with the way this turned out. Had a little help from Scott Miller, Tanis, out there at Jimmy Strauss Jeeps. He actually shot the video part where we actually show how the bolt snaps off away from the rivet. I got so excited while I was doing it, and this was the first time I ever had done this, that I forgot to push the record button on that portion of the video. But I hope I put this together well enough for you to see exactly how it worked. I'm ecstatic with the results, and I got to say, Scott, if you've got some more of those, guys probably going to want them because they work out fantastic. Thanks again. Until next time, my friends, keep it safe, happy Jeeping, and rivet away, because it's cool. Wait. Keep the cameras rolling. I forgot the most important part. If you'd like to follow along with what we're doing and what we have done on the 1943 Willys MB project, you can do so by subscribing to Team G503 on YouTube. Thanks again, guys and fellas out there. It is absolutely fantastic how my page or my channel has been growing on YouTube. And I hope I'm being of service to you, and I hope that these videos are helpful and you enjoy them. Until next time, my friends, wait, one more thing I forgot. Thank you to Ron Fitzpatrick and Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts. Till next time, keep it safe, happy Jeeping. Subscribe, y'all. I'm serious.